Hey guys, what's up? My name's Justine. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you my favorite ways to dye with the Shibori technique. Shibori is a form of Japanese resist dyeing, meaning wherever you bind off with a rubber band or clamp anything onto your fabric, that will leave it white, meaning that it's resisting the dye. It's typically done using indigo dye, which is a natural dye, but that's kind of its own beast and a video of its own. So today I'm just going to be using eye dye because it's readily available and easy to use. All right, so first things first, when it comes to dyeing, my favorite rule is always wear black. No matter how many times I start dyeing something, I always think, oh, I'll just be really careful, and it never works. So just put on a black shirt and save yourself the hassle. All right, so the second thing you want to do when you're dyeing fabric is stick to natural fabrics. If you're trying to dye something that's polyester or acrylic, the dye will not stick to it unless it's made for synthetic fabrics. So I'm going to be working with 100% cotton quilting fabric and using standard dye, and it will absorb right away. You can use this form of dye on any material. You can dye baseball hats, t-shirts, raw fabric, whatever. But since I'm using raw fabric today, one other thing that I want to note is that I always wash and dry the fabric that I'm using. That way I can get rid of any stains that came from the factory, and it also pre-shrinks the fabric. Because there's nothing worse than doing your whole project with a specific size fabric and then pulling it out of the dye bath and having it be 2 inches too short. So definitely wash and dry your fabric first. Let's get started. Okay, so the first set of techniques that we're gonna do all feature the accordion fold, which is one of the most important folds in Shibori dyeing. And an accordion fold looks just like this. And the reason we wanna use an accordion fold is because we want the dye to be able to get to all the layers of the fabric. And if we were to just use a regular fold like this, where you fold something in half and then again and again, the dye can't really get into these inner pieces of fabric. It's gonna give you an uneven dye if you do it this way. So always stick to the accordion fold. So the first one we're going to do is just a simple accordion fold. It's exactly what it sounds like. We're just going to start with a fold and then continue to work the fabric back and forth until we end up with a full accordion fold, kind of like a fan. I like to use an iron when I'm making these folds so that my lines are super crisp, but you totally don't have to do that. Once you have your whole thing folded, you can go ahead and start to bind off. I'm going to keep it pretty simple for this one, and I'm just going to use rubber bands to make evenly spaced sections all the way down the strip of fabric. But have fun with it, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to give you a quick dye walkthrough, but I'm mostly just following the instructions on the dye package. I'm using eye dye, which I'll link below in the description, and I think the directions actually say to mix it in the washing machine, but I'm just going to cut the packet open, mix with hot water to dissolve, and then add more water to dilute so I have enough dye to work with. Whenever you're doing Shibori, you always want to soak your prepped fabric in plain water first. I guess it's a little bit of a spoiler, but this is what the other binds are going to look like. I just kind of threw them all into the same bucket to soak together. And whenever your dye is mixed, you're just going to take your pre-soaked fabric and pop it right into the dye, stirring occasionally. Whenever you're ready to take it out of the dye bath, you're going to pull it out and start by running it under hot water, gradually making the water colder and colder until it runs clear. And then you're ready to undo the bind. And I'm just going to snip these rubber bands off and then unfold. It's actually really pretty. I love the way it came out, and it's the simplest technique. Alright, so this one's pretty much the same as the first one, but we're going to do an additional fold to kind of get that box pattern. So the first thing we're going to do is fold our piece of fabric in half, and then you're going to fold both sides back up towards that center fold, and I'm just going to give it a quick press. And you're going to be able to start to see your accordion right here. The only difference is it's a little wider than the first one and less layers. So now we're ready to start the accordion the long ways. So you're going to take that strip and fold it in half. And then you're going to fold that half in half again making it a quarter. So the goal is to just keep doing this until you have an accordion. So I ended up folding that quarter into thirds because that's the shape I wanted. But you can do whatever you want as long as your folds stay in the back and forth, just like an accordion. So you're going to keep going with this until you run out of fabric. And if you keep your folds consistent, you should end up with a nice stack with even sides. But getting them straight takes a while to perfect. So if it doesn't look just like this, don't worry about it. Like I said, we're going to use binder clips on this one, and we are literally just going to clip them onto the fabric. I like to leave a little space up at the top here so that it doesn't smush up against the sides, but that's all you have to do. This one's real simple. Just like before, you always want to soak in plain water first. And now we're ready to dye. So just pop whatever material you have prepped into your dye bath and let it sit, making sure to stir every once in a while. When you're ready to rinse, you want to start with hot water and then gradually make it cooler until your water runs clear. And then we're ready for the reveal. Again, it's literally so easy. It's just folding and binder clips, and you end up with an awesome result. So this next one we're going to try is the same accordion fold from the first video, so you can go back and watch that, but we're just going to use 2 cardboard pieces to bind off the fabric. Usually I use wood squares or acrylic from my scrap pile to bind off the fabric, but somewhere I read that you can just use cardboard, so I went ahead and gave that a shot. So you're just going to use 2 squares of cardboard. They can be a little smaller than what I did, and sandwich your fabric just like an Oreo. Then you're going to take some twine or string, whatever you have. I'll link what I'm using below, and you're just going to wrap it in both directions and tie it off when you're done. We're going to soak it just like before, and then pop it right into the dye bath. Whenever you're ready to rinse, just pull it out and remember to work your water from hot to cold until it runs clear before undoing the bind. Okay, so clearly my cardboard had kind of disintegrated, but it still worked. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see at this angle, but I have a better shot right here. If I were to do this again, I think I would just use a smaller square, and that would leave me more blue in the finished piece. Now we're going to try the triangle fold, which is actually my favorite. We are going to start just like we did with the first fold and make a simple accordion. So this fold is almost the same as the square accordion that we just did in the last segment, except instead of doing a square fold, we're going to fold using a 45-degree angle, so we end up with a triangle as our first fold. And just like before, we're going to go back and forth until we reach the end of our fabric. I went ahead and just trimmed off the excess fabric because I didn't need it. So this is what we're going for, a nice little triangle accordion. So you can use whatever you want to bind off on this, but I'm going to use popsicle sticks by just sandwiching them and then using rubber bands to pinch them. As always, make sure to soak in water first before transferring to your dye bath. When you're ready to rinse, just make sure you work your water from hot to cold until your water runs clear. And then you're ready to reveal. This is my favorite one. It looks so good. And here's its beauty shot, dry and ironed. The next technique we're going to try is featuring the PVC pipe. These are just from my local hardware store and they're brand new, but I will say the first thing that I'm going to do is rinse them off, because even if there's just a layer of dust on them, you don't want that to rub off on your fabric and ruin it before the project even starts. So I'm using PVC pipes for this one, but you can also use other cylindrical objects such as a vase or even a mason jar if that's readily available to you. Alright, so the first one we're going to do is going to look kind of like this, and it's super straightforward. We're literally just going to take a piece of fabric and roll it around a PVC pipe. I ended up using a rubber band to secure one end, and then I tied a piece of cotton twine around the rubber band. And then I'm just going to take that twine and start to wrap it around the fabric. Then you're just going to start to wrap that twine around the pipe. When you get far enough, you're going to start to run out of room on your PVC pipe, so you can take your fabric and scrunch it all down towards one end and then keep wrapping. When I got to the end, I trimmed my piece of twine and then slipped it under itself to tie a knot, but you could also use a rubber band if this is kind of tricky for you. Okay, so this is kind of what it should look like by the time you're done. When I'm using PVC pipes to dye, I usually like to mix in a 5-gallon bucket, that way it's deep enough for me to stick the whole thing in there. Just like before, I pre-soaked this fabric. I just ran it under the sink and then I popped it in the dye bath. I did make sure to go back and pour dye over any of the fabric that didn't fit into the dye bath. Alright, and for the rinse, you're going to do the same thing as before. Start with hot water and then gradually make it colder until it runs clear. And then we're ready to untie. So you're just going to go ahead and snip off the string and pull it. So you're just going to sort of peel the fabric off the pole, and then when you stretch it out, you'll see your pattern. And here it is, dry and ironed. Alright, and so now it's time to do a chevron wrap. It's almost the same, it's just going to give you kind of a herringbone pattern. So what we're going to do is start by taking our fabric and just folding it in half. Then, just like before, we're going to take both sides and turn them up towards the middle crease. So when you're done with that, you should have our good old friend, the accordion fold. And what you're going to do is take the corner and put it pointing towards the end of the PVC pipe, like at a 45-degree angle. So you're going to pop a rubber band right onto that and then tie a piece of twine to it. Then you're going to start to wrap the twine around the fabric. And then once you have a little bit down, you're going to wrap the fabric around the pole and then keep wrapping the twine around the fabric. Okay, I know that sounds a lot more confusing than it is. Just keep an eye on the video and hopefully that will make sense. So you can see I just kept wrapping until I got to the end, And I actually used a binder clip just to secure that last bit of fabric on there. When you run out of fabric, you're just going to tie it off and then scrunch all of it down to the end of the pole. And this is what it should look like. I did run mine underwater before I put it into the dye bath. Alright, and when you're ready to pull it out, you're going to rinse as always, working your water from hot to cold until it runs clear. And then we're ready to undo the bind. So snip that rubber band and pull that string off. Okay, so I know this isn't the best shot, but here it is, looking all ironed and professional. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked what you saw, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you try this out, tag me on Instagram because I want to see. See you next time.